This is a song that's probably a lot dearer to your hearts because it was with great intent and lots of desires to find badge holders that the song was in fact written. So this is to every Californian badge holder we've ever had.
Well, good evening, everybody. Good afternoon for me. It is July 2023. Welcome back. You are listening to the Zepfan podcast. My name is Mark McFall. This is episode 12. We have a really great podcast for you today. We have an update on the not yet released documentary, Becoming Led Zeppelin. So we'll dive into that. Before I begin, just a few things. If you want to listen to back episodes of our podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts, go to Spotify, Amazon, search Led Zeppelin, search Zepfan. You will find it. If you have a chance, leave a review. It's always greatly appreciated. For those memorabilia collectors, visit our website at zepfan.com. We have over 6,000 Led Zeppelin memorabilia items. If you have any items not on the website and you want to showcase them and be credited, please get in touch with me at contact@zepfan.com. I think that's it. Let's begin. Okay, everybody. Welcoming back to the show is James Cook. As you may remember, James is founder of the incredibly informative news website, Led Zeppelin News. That's ledzeppnews.com. He just celebrated the website's 10th anniversary. He is back today to discuss an update to the film biography, Becoming Led Zeppelin. Through his investigative journalism, he has been able to uncover an 11-page grant application detailing the planned promotional campaign of this film. He is here to discuss the timeline of the documentary, Becoming Led Zeppelin, and share his new findings with us. Thanks, James, for joining me again. How's everything going?
It's very good. It's good to be back here. And when I sort of got this story together, I thought, well, who do I talk to about this? Who will care? And your name was top of the list, for better or for worse there, Mark.
Right, exactly. Well, that's good. We'll definitely dive into all the news you found. I want to go through a timeline of the actual film itself. It's surprising that this film isn't even out yet, but we'll do all that. First, want to say thank you for having Led Zeppelin News. I know last podcast I said the same thing. Thank you so much. But it's great for me as a fan, almost on a daily basis, to have updates of anything Led Zeppelin related, from Robert Plant to John Paul Jones to Jimmy Page, all the concert stuff. So thank you again from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure a lot of people that are listening. Thank you.
Well, thank you. No, it's my pleasure. And it's been really fun actually the last few months. Sort of to dive back in. You know, I've turned on sort of optional paid subscriptions on Substack and done some sort of exclusive stuff around that. And that's been really nice. It covers its costs for the first time, just about, so it starts to become almost viable economically, which is a nice point to be at. Yeah.
Right. Cool. Well, like me or like all the other fans and like myself, I really want to know more about this Becoming Led Zeppelin, because we only know so much and some of the great news stories that you broke in the past few years. Right now, so without diving into too much detail, can you discuss what a grant application is, the purpose of it, and how or where you're able to obtain it?
100%. Yeah, so I really care about Becoming Led Zeppelin because I think I really want to see the film with the surviving members talking. It sounds amazing, and it could absolutely reinvigorate the band's prospects in the same way that the Baz Luhrmann Elvis film did, the Rocket Man, Elton John biopic. Like, I want this to come out in the world, because I'm passionate about it. So for me, I sort of sat down and thought, well, we're not getting any official updates about what's going on with the film. There's radio silence there. So I thought, well, how can I figure out what's happening or sort of tell the story of this film's development? Because the number one question that I get at Led Zeppelin News in Facebook comments and emails almost several times a week now is, when is this film coming out? And if I post anything, even mentioning it, the response I get is, yes, but when is it coming out? And while I cannot tell people that, I can at least take people under the hood on what's going on. So the grant application form, basically, if you're making a film, very difficult to begin with, but also very expensive, especially to go out and promote it on the road. As we know, the film premiered in 2021 in Venice at the film festival in September. And this document basically is a request from the British Film Institute, which is a sort of publicly funded, lottery-funded body in the UK, from the filmmakers saying, can we please have some money to go and promote this film and make it a big deal? Sums that typically are given in grants are thousands, tens of thousands of pounds. Okay. And this was a form basically saying, look, this is a UK film. We're flying the flag for the UK. It's a British band. We promote the UK overseas. Please, can we have, let's say, I don't know, but between 10 and 20,000 pounds would be a ballpark. And that will basically go towards promoting it. And the big central plank of our promotional campaign is for the 3 surviving members of Led Zeppelin to come out to Venice and promote it. That was what the form was essentially asking for money there. The way I got that is I filed what's called a Freedom of Information request with the BFI. It's any publicly funded body, whether it's a government department, a university in the UK, Australia, and the US as well. You basically have a legal right to ferret around in their documents and their emails, which is immensely powerful. Journalists use that to break massive news. So I sent them an email several months ago saying, do you have anything related to Becoming Led Zeppelin, or Apollo, as it was called when it was in production? And, I spent quite a few weeks figuring out, do we have anything? Went back and forth, and eventually said, yes, we do. Here is this form, which was handed in. And that's how I got hold of that. I have the legal right to have it. I suspect it's quite annoying if you're a filmmaker and I'm going around getting all your correspondence, but that's the origin of that one.
Oh, very cool. So you didn't know this document existed. You just filed this as a journalist saying, what do you have on Becoming Led Zeppelin? And is it the government's duty to kind of let you know this is what we have available on Becoming Led Zeppelin?
It's a complete shot in the dark. I've sent about 10 or 15 of these requests to different bodies in the UK, universities. I sent one to the National Portrait Gallery in the UK recently, and they revealed that they'd been planning a massive Led Zeppelin exhibition for the 50th anniversary. I had no idea to ask for that. But they basically go and do a search on all their systems for Led Zeppelin and legally have to show me what they've got, which is great fun. Sometimes you get these very unexpected things. So I thought, I'll ask the BFI. I'm sort of familiar with them giving out grants to films. So I thought maybe they might have been emailed, maybe there was a meeting, just to see what's happened. It's a shot in the dark. And that's where this form came from.
Right. And I think just diving into Becoming Led Zeppelin, I think the fact that these 3 people agreed on doing this is surprise enough. So the fact that we haven't seen it yet from a fan point, and that it, was introduced in 2019, is like, where is this thing at? So let's kind of go through a timeline on this. And then as we go through, provide a little bit more information on the details you found in this 11-page document, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And fill me in wherever I because I'm just kind of took some notes here. It looks like, so they announced it in May 2019, directed by...
It goes back further, which is the real shock. This film has been in the work for over 5 years at this point, reaching the 5-year mark of Becoming Led Zeppelin being a project. So if you go on the US government copyright archive thing, which is not something I tend to do often, but
because you have that kind of time,
you have to disclose when the project was started, essentially. And the earliest date we've got is August the 10th, 2018, is when work on Becoming Led Zeppelin began. So we're approaching the 5-year mark now.
So, and as we know, the premise of the film is kind of to trace the formation of the early years of Led Zeppelin, their influences, and how they got together, and really just covering, from my understanding, just the first year of Led Zeppelin, 1969. I mean,
well, that's an open question now, whether that time period has changed. There are suggestions that perhaps that final end date of the film may have changed. So originally it was, the childhood of the band members up until January 1970, because it was a very arbitrary deadline. Royal Albert Hall show, Jimmy Page's birthday. But then, of course, we had the Bath Festival 1970.
That's some good footage.
Crystal clear footage just emerged on YouTube one day.
Right.
So the question is, have they got that footage? I mean, you can buy it, you can license it. It's available for commercial use. It would be silly not to. And if so, is that now in the film? And that's an open question now. I don't know whether it is.
Well, and I think with that has to do with also if Page has the tapes. I would imagine they got a soundboard of it, because that was a big deal of them playing Bath and playing that big stage, because they did play it a year earlier, but that was on the small stage in the tent. This year, they're playing the big performance. They're the big act. So you'd imagine, and fingers crossed, they have a soundboard of it as well.
You'd hope so, because the Bath footage on YouTube is silent. There's no audio with it. So it would be whether Led Zeppelin have that audio. So I went to email last week, one of the people who owns the Bath Festival footage, one of the companies that's helping to put it out into the world, someone who was previously really chatty, talking me through how much there was. So I emailed them last week saying, hey, is it in Becoming Led Zeppelin? And I had an email back saying, oh, he's just died, several days ago. So I no longer have a source to tell me about that, as that person has literally just died.
Yeah, you would think they would use that, because in the honest truth of Led Zeppelin footage of 1969, obviously with Grant not allowing any TV shows. There's very few of them, with like the Danish TV, a couple communication breakdowns, the beat clubs. But, other than fan footage and people just capturing at a festival with all the other bands, that's only, anywhere from 30 seconds to a couple minutes. There's not a lot of footage. So at least we get something with Royal Albert Hall. Obviously, then if we could move on to Bath footage, just to enjoy that, Led Zeppelin on, somewhat pro shot footage too.
Yeah, so that's a theory. My assumption is that footage is in it, but as you say, it covers the early years of Led Zeppelin. It's not the whole history of the band. It's very much here's our childhood. We got together, we started a band, and then the film ends as they sort of take off, essentially.
Right, and that's an interesting concept. From what I've read from reviews, it's almost half the documentary has to do with them just joining all, coming from each corners of not the earth, the UK, and just, joining forces and what their influences were and, what happened. So it's almost like the first hour documents all that.
Yeah, and the application form sort of lays that out in a really interesting way. I haven't seen the film, but the form talks about the two storylines that the filmmakers say make up the film. And the main storyline, they say, is Led Zeppelin's influence from African-American, blues, soul music. And in the second storyline, which is kind of interesting, is the different sort of economic backgrounds of the two halves of Led Zeppelin. So Robert Plant and John Bonham from, the north of England, essentially. Working class families, and then Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones from South England, Southeast England and London, a bit more affluent areas, and how that dictated, what jobs they did and how easy it was for them to go into entertainment. And those are two storylines apparently of the film there.
Well, and I think that's another interesting part of that film is the fact that for a documentary, there's no one else involved except the four members. I mean, telling the story, you don't have girlfriends, wives, managers, nobody else talking about this formation. It's really just the four of them talking about the formation throughout the whole film. So it's a very interesting concept. And what's also interesting, the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, that this is the first time they agreed on a documentary. So maybe that style is what they agreed on. Who knows?
I think so. I think also the time period it covers helps because, it's a lot of the sort of more colorful incidents, they're long after that point. So it's a much safer subject to talk about at length there.
Right. And I think Jimmy Page is very aware of the legacy of Led Zeppelin. So he doesn't want to go into the over the top 75, 77, all that debauchery that happened back then. It's about the music. This is what happened. This is how they took over the world. And by 1969, they were on top.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what was announced in 2019 is it's about the start of Led Zeppelin. It didn't have a title then, it was just said,
right.
There's a film coming.
And the working title was Apollo, right? And from 2019 until they actually introduced it. And so 2019, 2020, we didn't really hear anything. 2021, it's finally ready. And it makes it to the Venice Film Festival, September 2021. And the Telluride Film Festival, Colorado, September 21. So the film's ready. They preview it. Nobody picked it up. They didn't sell it.
Yeah,
right.
So this has been a sort of revisionist history here, in that the film was completed in September 2021, and the company selling the film on listed it as complete, in black and white. Since then, it's been claimed that was an early cut and a rough version to cover for the fact that no distributor picked the film up in 2021.
Isn't that surprising, though? We have all these other streaming networks. I would pick up almost anything because, for me, I love documentaries and I watch, tons of them. And, there's good ones and there's bad ones. But, for a documentary of Led Zeppelin not being bought up immediately, but who knows, maybe it's the asking price or it just wasn't feasible for their audience.
Yeah, I think for me, and this is speculation on this side, it's one of the reasons why you'd buy the right to distribute this film is you'd have the buy-in of the band members to go out and promote it and do interviews. And what seems to be becoming clear is Robert Plant's not going to do that. And John Paul Jones is not going to do that. So you've only got one out of the three. And does that make it a less attractive prospect commercially there? And that's why, the filmmakers were asking for this money is, look, we've got to get all three together. In the end, they didn't get all three in Venice in September 2021. They only had Jimmy Page.
Right. Well, so these documents came out. It's for the planned promotional campaign from July 5th. Is that when you received? Is that when the documents were drafted up?
They were dated, July 2021. So this was in advance of the premiere. They were asking for money to basically cover the costs of Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, and Jimmy Page going to Venice, because it's expensive. You got flights, hotels, security as well.
Right.
Like, you asked Robert Plant to pay all that himself to promote someone else's film
that he's not really interested in.
And this is something that gets lost as well. Is this isn't a Led Zeppelin made thing? This is an independent
Right.
indie filmmaker. This isn't like Led Zeppelin gets a cut of their film sales that I'm aware of. This is someone outside of the band, so they need their costs covered to go and promote it, essentially. My guess is they didn't get this grant money, and so they could only afford Jimmy Page, and that's why only he was there. That's my assumption there. I've asked the BFI and the filmmakers whether Becoming Led Zeppelin was given the grant. They haven't responded, and they are not listed on the BFI list of grants. So my working assumption is they didn't get the money they asked for.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you would think, like you mentioned, if you had all three of them there, it would be a big thing. They haven't been seen since Celebration Day press conference, I think. Yeah. And the fact that these three people are in a room together, which I think they were for the book, but the fact that they're publicly seen where there was probably a press conference and people could ask questions would be there'd be a lot of excitement around that for sure.
It would be a big vote of confidence in the film, saying, we're all happy with it, because they'd all seen it by that point. Indeed,
right.
Every surviving band member has now seen the film. We know that. So that raises the question, well, why isn't Robert Plant,
it would look like they're all endorsing it as well. It would look like a Led Zeppelin project, even though it's not produced by Led Zeppelin. It would look like a Led Zeppelin produced project. So there'd be a lot more hype, I would think.
Exactly. Yeah, so that raises the question of, well, why aren't they, sharing this? Robert Plant was asked about it in interviews in November 2021, and he said, I was only minorly involved, which is somewhat hard to believe.
Yeah, typical Robert, though, because, he sat down for an interview for this. I'm assuming that's new interviews with old interviews intermixed with it, but I would imagine it is somewhat the new interviews of them talking about everything.
Yes, that seems to be the bulk of it. That's not a half-hour commitment. That's
right.
Hours of filming had to have taken place there.
Okay. Yeah, it's amazing. So anything else that we should know about 2021 that happened with these documents? The Venice Film Festival.
Venice Film Festival was the big one there, and they wanted to essentially do a massive PR campaign, digital marketing, set up a website, all of this big
social media campaign. Yeah.
Exactly. And they say in this thing that we've got three audiences that we want to hit with this film. Core fans of the band, that's you and me, Mark, us people who think about Led Zeppelin every day,
right.
General music fans, and then, younger fans, teenagers, people in their early 20s who are just starting to think about classic rock. They said this will make them go to the cinema to see this film. But what ended up happening is there wasn't really a promotional campaign beyond the film press.
No.
There's been no website launch. There are no public social media channels. So we don't get updates about this film because there is no campaign happening.
Right. And there's that 30-second teaser from Super Show that says Becoming Led Zeppelin. Clip looks great. Looks like they did an amazing transfer on it, but that is pretty little as far as, and maybe the assumption was it was going to sell really quick, after this Venice show. Who knows? But very little publicity on this one.
Very little. And that's why, I've wanted to dig into what's going on, because it's very difficult to find out. Other than that one update we had September 2022, which was that the film is being re-edited to add more footage. And that was in a post on the Led Zeppelin forum. That
was it. That was it. Yeah.
That's the only sign of life we've had, which is surreal to me.
Yeah. It's almost, of course it didn't sell. So let's go back to the drawing board. And, what is the time frame of the movie? It's like 2.5 hours.
It's a long film. I think the running time is, I want to say, 137 minutes.
They re-edited just a plea for new video and stuff. And if anybody has anything, then that goes to 2023, and a new cut of the film was screened at the Soho House, West Hollywood, April 6th. Yeah. We don't know if it was any different. We don't know if there's new footage, if it's shorter or any of that. Is there any details of that event?
You're asking
that you could share.
Oh. I don't know. My understanding is it is a different film to what was shown in 2021.
Okay,
and that's the narrative being put forward from the filmmakers. Is like, this is a different film at this point. Like, it's a new cut. There is different footage, additional footage put into it, and that's why they did that screening in April of this year for music industry folks in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, is to show them, hey, look, we're back. We've got this film. And at that time, this hasn't been reported actually. This is a new one for you.
Wait, breaking news. Go ahead. Go ahead, James.
I would tell you, so Bernard, the director, has been radio silent for all the people he's been working with on the film, or at least a large number of them. And, I've got sources involved with the film, and they were kind of frustrated because, they spent years on this and they want to know when the film's coming out. And I was told earlier this year, Bernard resurfaced and started replying to emails around that time saying, yes, the film is done. We've got a new cut. It's finished. We're happy to resume conversations with you now. So they were all really excited around April of this year when this film was screened again in Hollywood.
Okay. Well, talk about what happened. I think in May 2023, you received a cache of emails regarding the interview, the John Bonham portion that's being used in the film. For those of you that don't know, as we mentioned, it's just the four members talking about the documentary, and they utilize an Australian interview from 1972 that has John Bonham. So talk a little bit about that in the emails that you uncovered.
Yeah. So again, that was a fishing expedition.
Great job, by the way. I have to say, you bring that to us fans. We appreciate it.
Yeah, so I emailed and sent a Freedom of Information request, the same sort of request to the Archive House in Australia, where we know that this radio interview was found, in the archives there, and said, send me, and I'm really annoying. I'm like, send me everything you've got about all your communications with the people who made this film. Bless them, they did. So it's 69 pages of emails they sent to me, documents, even a photo of part of the tape. Like, they have to legally send everything.
Right.
What it does is reveal, first of all, Bernard hands-on emailing from his phone. We've got to get this tape, can you send it to me? I really want to get it in the film. We know, for example, that he uses 6 minutes and 36 seconds of John Bonham's voice from that interview in his film. But then things kind of go south in the email correspondence, in that the bill doesn't get paid, essentially. So when you license the audio, you have to pay money.
Before you put out the film, right? Yeah,
exactly. And the Archive House start getting a bit frustrated, saying, hey, you haven't paid us all the money, and eventually in 2022 they emailed saying the deal's off, you haven't sent money, you need to take the audio out of your film. And that's a bit of a shock that the filmmakers behind this massive documentary didn't pay the bill for a really crucial part that gets John Bonham's voice into it. So I was really surprised by that. And that's where the emails I received end, with the deal being terminated, essentially. So I emailed Alison McGrorty, one of the producers of the film, saying, look, I'm coming to you for comment. I'm writing that you didn't pay your bills. And she sent me an email back saying, thanks for your interest in the film, which I felt was a little sarcastic, but who knows? In there, just a politeness. A deal has been struck and that audio will be in the film when it comes out. So the deal is back on. John Bonham's voice is still in the film. There does seem to have been some financial issue there around 20.
That's a must. Do we know how much it was? How much the bill was?
I want to say about $10,000 or so. Okay. Like, not crazy money. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here. So it's unclear why that wasn't paid there.
Right. And I think because this was introduced around COVID, there's not a lot of jobs, probably not a lot of income, and things happen to everybody. And going back, didn't something happen with the producers or something with the film company that they were paying their rent, or what was that all about?
Yeah, good memory. So there's a web of companies involved, and they're all called Paradise Pictures or Paradise Entertainment. And one of the companies within that group was late filing its accounts and has since filed it. But I dug into, because I'm annoying, I dug into their financial history, and they're just a little bit slow filing their accounts, which is not the mark of a massive global film production company. Like, they're not Warner Brothers, they're an indie UK film studio, and this is the one project we know they're working on. So that speaks to perhaps the level of organization that's happening there.
I keep saying, with the confidence of being a Led Zeppelin documentary, you wouldn't think this would be 5 years in the making. You think it would be done, sold, everyone cash out, move on to the next project. But I'm sure that's holding them up as well, wanting to sell this thing.
I think in a way I respect the way that they seem to be approaching this, which is we'll take the time to get something that we're really happy with, that we will make land. And if you look at American Epic, which is the previous project by the filmmakers about the rise of blues music, massive project, years long, video, audio, out a book as well, really well received. they didn't do this overnight. Like, they're really involved, in-depth filmmakers, which I get why that would be appealing to the band members to work.
That's what I was going to say. They both, from my understanding, yeah, they both love those documentaries. So I'm sure that was a good selling point.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so that's talking about the May 2023 emails you found. July 2023 now. Where are we at? What do you have for us, James? What's going to happen now? When are we going to see this thing?
I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? I mean, look, there is a new cut of the film. Like, the film has been re-edited. There is something that is being shown to people, and that's, we're back to where we were essentially in September 2021, where there is a cut of the film. It's being distributed, hopefully for being screened at some point. I expect at this point, we're looking at end of this year at the very earliest for being able to see this. So what we can do is look back at the original timeline for the film. Mm-hmm. So it was premiere 2021, finished in December 2021 is what they told the US government. The earliest it would have been shown was February 2022. So, a number of months after that premiere date.
Right, so it's not too bad then. I mean, a year off from...
It's not too bad. It's not too bad. So that makes us think, December 2023, if not into 2024, that's the earliest we might see this thing. But again, there's no news, there's no official announcement.
Typical Led Zeppelin, the Led Zeppelin curse, because you never know anything from that camp until it comes out. I know you've done some great investigation and pulled up some great pieces, but in the end, we just never know with the Led Zeppelin, and stuff just comes out. So
we don't know. I did the rounds of all the public relations companies who have worked on this film, and there's about 3 or 4 of them. A lot of them don't work on it anymore. Companies have been and gone in relationships with the filmmakers. And I've said to them, like, hey, what's going on? And they've said to me, like, we don't know. We haven't spoken to them in months.
Wow. Okay. Well, James, thank you for keeping us up to date with the Becoming Led Zeppelin, diving deep in all this investigation and just finding this stuff, finding this grant letter, finding all this information on the John Bonham tapes. One of the articles you had to do with changing the name. So what's the story about them changing the name and changing it back?
I think it was probably an error on the people selling the film because it became just Led Zeppelin. It was unbecoming at that point, is my very niche joke. And it re-became Becoming Led Zeppelin. I think they were just editing their website. They probably pressed the wrong button. It made me think, is this a significant rebrand? I don't think it was.
Don't think so either. Yeah,
quite funny.
Right. Okay. Well, cool. July 2023. That is your update, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, James. Now that I have you here, you are the news source for Led Zeppelin. What else is going on in the Led Zeppelin world? What happened in 2023 that you could share? Some big, exciting things.
John Paul Jones working on that film soundtrack. Whether that will come to fruition, we shall see. Robert Plant has set up a new company. That's a little exclusive.
Did he now?
Blood Money, with the slightly ominous name there. What is Robert Plant's Blood Money all about?
That's the name of the company?
Robert Plant has set up a company called Blood Money in the UK.
Oh, Robert.
Now, whether that's his interestingly named vehicle for Led Zeppelin royalties, I'm
going to say that's almost what I would guess.
Yeah, so that's fascinating. Often what you will do is when you've set up a new project, you'll set up a new company with it. Or sometimes it can just be yet another way of getting your royalties from previous albums. We don't yet know, but Robert Plant has set up Blood Money.
That doesn't surprise me knowing Robert Plant. As soon as you told me that, that's exactly what I thought. You mentioned the Led Zeppelin royalties. That has to be it.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. We know there's a Saving Grace album coming out. It might be related to that. It might be Band of Joy. Who knows? The rumors on the grapevine are Jimmy Page is working on stuff.
Don't say
that. I don't know what that stuff is. I don't want to give people false hope, but that's what I'm told. I'm told there are things happening, but God knows what it is.
No, I have stuff from him from 1999. I'm working on an album. It's going to be out next year. So be surprised. Be surprised. Yeah. Unless it's an album that he produced or something that he has nothing to do with guitar-wise. So
on holiday in July and then back to the projects, whatever they may be.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Well, thank you so much, James, for joining me. If any last words, anything you want to promote, go right ahead.
No, I'll promote myself. I'm looking for a job, so you can hire me. You can find out how to get in touch with me. That's the only thing I'm here to promote.
LedZepNews.com. Check it out. Okay, James, thanks again. Thanks for all the great information. Keep going. Rock out. Thanks.